In the modern world, we are told that success means constant motion. We are urged to wake earlier, work harder, push faster, and never stop striving for more. Yet beneath the surface of this restless chase, something fragile begins to break. Stress builds like an invisible weight pressing down on the chest. Relationships grow cold, replaced by screens and shallow words. Money becomes both a dream and a chain, whispering promises of freedom while binding us tighter to fear. Anxiety rises in silent waves that no amount of distraction can quiet. Even when surrounded by abundance, we feel empty, as though something vital has been lost. This is the pain of our age, a quiet ache hidden behind bright smiles and busy schedules. And yet, within this ache lies an opening. For centuries, human beings have turned to wisdom traditions in times of confusion, searching not for escape, but for guidance that speaks to the heart. Among these traditions, the teachings of the Buddha shine with a gentle clarity. They do not demand blind belief. They do not preach from a distant mountaintop. Instead, they whisper simple truths. Breathe, notice, release. These truths are not relics of the past. They are medicine for the present, a compass for anyone trapped in the storm of modern life. When applied with sincerity, they reveal that peace is not hidden in some faraway future. Peace is here, waiting in the quiet space between one breath and the next. Imagine for a moment that you are standing in the middle of a rushing city street. Horns blare, lights flash, people hurry past. The noise is overwhelming. But then, you step into a small garden tucked between buildings. The sound softens. The air feels lighter. Your body relaxes. That garden is what the teachings of mindfulness create inside you. It is a return to center, a place where clarity blooms, no matter how loud the outside world becomes. From this ground, you begin to see differently. Stress does not vanish, but it loosens its grip. Fear does not disappear, but it no longer rules. This is the promise of the Dharma, not perfection, but freedom. Over the course of this journey, we will walk together through 10 great struggles of modern life and discover how ancient wisdom can transform them. Each struggle is a mirror reflecting the hidden burdens many carry: stress, loneliness, restlessness, longing, and each solution is not abstract theory, but a doorway into living more fully. We will speak of true strength, which is not the hardness of steel, but the resilience of water. We will explore the unseen shield of awareness that protects without walls. We will face the inner opponent, that whisper of doubt and craving, and we will rise like the lotus from the mud. Through these stories, metaphors, and practices, you will not only hear ideas, but feel an invitation to live differently. This journey is not about escaping your life. It is about entering it more deeply, with eyes open and heart unafraid. You will discover that surrender is not defeat, but release. That simplicity is not lack, but power. That urgency can awaken instead of terrify. And that within you lies an indestructible mind, a diamond-clear awareness no storm can shatter. By the end, you will see that the pain you carry is not your enemy. It is the very soil from which wisdom blooms. Let us begin this journey together, with honesty, with courage, and with the hope that freedom is not just possible, it is already here, waiting within you. Many people in our modern world believe that strength means never bending. We are told to keep a straight face, to never show weakness, to keep moving forward no matter what pain we feel inside. From an early age, we are trained to push through our struggles with gritted teeth, believing that endurance alone is the mark of a strong human being. In schools, children are told to toughen up, to ignore their emotions. In workplaces, employees are praised for never resting, for taking on more tasks than any person could realistically carry. At home, parents often hide their tears from their children, thinking that to cry is to fail them. And in relationships, so many people feel they must hide their fears and insecurities, wearing a mask of confidence so no one sees the fragile heart beneath. This is the story we have inherited, that strength means hardness, that resilience means suppression, that survival means silence. But deep inside, we know that this version of strength leaves us empty. We see the cracks in our own hearts. We notice how stress lingers, even when we achieve our goals. We watch people we love collapse under the weight of their hidden pain. We sense that the definition of strength given to us by society is incomplete. If strength were only about hardness, then why do so many hard people break when life tests them? If resilience were only about suppression, then why do suppressed emotions always find a way to resurface, often in destructive forms? If silence were truly survival, then why do we feel so lonely when we refuse to speak our truth? The truth is that this image of strength is an illusion. It is a cage built on fear, and it prevents us from discovering the deeper power waiting within. True strength is not about resisting the world with clenched fists. True strength is about learning how to move with life's currents instead of fighting against them. Think of water flowing through a great valley. It bends around rocks, it carves through mountains, it continues on no matter what stands in its way. Water is soft to the touch, yet no force on earth can break it. Over time, even the hardest stone yields to its persistence. This is the image of true resilience, the quiet, gentle power of flowing instead of resisting. Ancient teachings remind us again and again that the most unshakable strength comes not from hardness, but from softness. It comes not from pushing endlessly, but from pausing, breathing, and choosing wisely. It comes not from hiding emotion, but from understanding it, holding it, and letting it pass like clouds in a vast sky. Imagine a person standing in the middle of a storm. The wind is fierce, the rain is heavy, and the thunder shakes the ground. One kind of person braces their body, clenching their muscles, trying to hold their ground through sheer force. At first, it looks impressive. They seem strong. But soon, exhaustion sets in. Their body begins to shake. Their breath grows shallow. Eventually, the storm wins. Another kind of person approaches differently. Instead of stiffening, they loosen their posture. Instead of resisting, they sway with the wind. They bend like a tree with deep roots. They understand that storms come and storms go, and that fighting the storm only wastes energy. This second person is the one who remains standing after the storm passes. Their strength is not visible in clenched fists, but in quiet endurance. This is the lesson of water, the lesson of the tree, the lesson of life itself. Not so many people in America today feel like the first person in that storm. We resist our stress, our fears, our failures. We think if we ignore them, if we pretend they do not exist, they will somehow disappear. But the opposite is true. The more we resist, the more power we give our pain. We turn natural emotions into enemies, and then we exhaust ourselves in constant battle. This is why burnout has become an epidemic. This is why so many people wake each morning already tired, already anxious, already bracing themselves for another day of struggle. The storm has not destroyed them. Their resistance to the storm has. What would happen if we stopped fighting? What would happen if we allowed ourselves to flow, to bend, to move gently through the challenges life offers? This is where the wisdom of the Buddha enters. Like a lantern in a dark room, the Buddha taught that clinging and resistance are the roots of suffering. When we cling to an idea of how life must be, we suffer when life does not obey. When we resist the emotions rising in us, we suffer because those emotions grow stronger in the shadows. But when we learn to notice, to breathe, to allow, something changes. The pain may not vanish instantly, but its grip weakens. The storm may not stop, but we no longer collapse beneath it. This is the beginning of freedom. It is not grand or dramatic. It is subtle. It begins in the quiet pause between one breath and the next. In that pause, strength reveals itself not as force, but as clarity. Not as hardness, but as gentleness. Not as endless striving, but as acceptance. Acceptance is often misunderstood. People fear that acceptance means passivity, that it means giving up, that it means letting life walk over us. But true acceptance is the opposite. True acceptance is the foundation of wise action. Imagine you are lost in a forest. You can either panic, denying where you are, pretending you are somewhere else, or you can accept, I am lost. I am here. Only with that clear acceptance can you then take steps to find your way out. Without acceptance, all effort is wasted. Acceptance is not surrender to defeat. It is surrender to truth. And truth is always the first step toward freedom. This is why acceptance is a form of strength, perhaps the highest form of strength. It requires courage to see clearly. It requires bravery to stop pretending. It requires resilience to face life as it really is. When we begin to practice this kind of strength, our lives shift in ways that are both gentle and profound. Stress no longer dominates us in the same way. We still feel it, but we also see it for what it is, a passing state, not a permanent reality. Fear still arises, but it no longer paralyzes us, because we know it too is temporary. Pain still visits, but it does not define us, because we recognize that we are larger than any single moment of suffering. This recognition is freedom. It does not come from force. It comes from awareness. And the more we cultivate awareness, the more unshakable we become. Let us pause here and breathe together. Take a slow breath in, feeling your lungs expand. Hold it gently for a moment, and let it out, soft and complete. Notice the calm that follows. That calm is not weakness. That calm is not escape. That calm is strength. It is the ground beneath all storms, the center that never collapses, the quiet river flowing through your life. In this stillness, you discover that strength is not something you need to build. It is already here, waiting for you to notice that to live with this deeper strength means reshaping how we see ourselves. For many, identity has been built around proving something. Proving we are successful, proving we are strong, proving we are worthy. From childhood, we are graded, measured, and compared. Later, in adulthood, salaries, titles, and possessions become the measuring sticks. Our sense of strength becomes tied to these external markers. When we achieve, we feel powerful. When we fail, we feel powerless. But this cycle is fragile. A single loss at work, a single broken relationship, a single moment of illness can make everything collapse. If our strength depends only on circumstances, then it is never real. It is borrowed, and borrowed power can always be taken away. True strength, the strength taught in ancient wisdom, comes from a source that cannot be taken away. It is born from within, from awareness itself. This kind of strength does not shout, does not boast, and does not require proof. It is steady, like the roots of a tree deep beneath the soil. Others may not see it, but it holds the entire tree upright. You may face storms, but you do not fall, because your roots run deeper than the winds can reach. The Buddha described this inner foundation as the refuge of awareness. Awareness is like a lamp that lights the darkness of confusion. With awareness, we see our thoughts rise and fall without being enslaved by them. With awareness, we recognize emotions as temporary visitors rather than permanent residents. With awareness, we find the courage to face our pain without being destroyed by it. Picture a glass jar filled with muddy water. If you keep shaking the jar, the water will always be cloudy. This is how most of us live, constantly stirring our minds with stress, distraction, and resistance. But if you place the jar down and allow it to rest, the mud settles and the water becomes clear. Clarity reveals what was always there. In the same way, When we rest in awareness, our inner strength emerges. It was never gone. It was only hidden beneath the turbulence of our constant struggle. This is why meditation, mindfulness, and simple breathing are such powerful practices. They are not magical techniques. They are simply ways to let the mud settle. They remind us that strength is not created by force, but uncovered by stillness. In modern culture, we are taught that stillness is laziness. We are told that pausing is wasted time, that slowing down means falling behind. But look closely, and you will see the opposite is true. A mind that never rests becomes dull, anxious, and reactive. A mind that knows how to pause becomes sharp, calm, and steady. Athletes understand this truth. They train their bodies, but they also know the importance of recovery. Muscles grow not during strain, but during rest. The same principle applies to the mind. When we rest in awareness, our mental strength grows. When we pause, our resilience deepens. The culture of endless striving blinds us to this truth, but ancient wisdom brings it back into focus. There is another image that reveals the essence of true strength. Imagine a mountain standing tall above a valley. The mountain experiences rain, snow, wind, and heat. Storms pass, seasons change, yet the mountain remains unmoved. It does not fight the weather. It does not complain when the snow falls or when the sun burns. It simply stands, steady and vast. Our minds can become like that mountain. Thoughts, emotions, and events come and go like weather. Sometimes joyful, sometimes painful, sometimes chaotic. But beneath them all, there is a deeper awareness, unmoving and unshakable. When we rest in this awareness, we discover a strength that no loss, no failure, no insult, and no storm can touch. This kind of strength is not just personal. It changes how we relate to others. When you are no longer fighting your own emotions, you can meet the emotions of others with compassion. When you are no longer clinging to your own pride, you can listen to others with humility. When you are no longer enslaved by fear, you can act with courage for the sake of others. True strength is contagious. It inspires without needing to dominate. It guides without needing to control. It heals without needing to preach. Imagine a friend who listens to you fully, without judgment or interruption. Their presence feels steady, safe, and comforting. That is what strength feels like when it is expressed through awareness. It is not loud, but it is deeply powerful. This truth can transform even the most ordinary moments of daily life. Consider the stressful commute many face each morning. Traffic, horns, delays, frustration rising in the chest. Most people tighten their grip on the steering wheel, curse at other drivers, and arrive at work already exhausted. But someone who has learned true strength approaches it differently. They take a breath. They notice the tightness, the frustration, and they allow it to pass. They listen to the radio softly, or they sit in silence. They accept that the traffic is beyond their control, and they choose peace instead of anger. The traffic is the same, but the experience is transformed. This is not weakness. This is mastery. It is the strength of choosing response instead of reaction, of flowing instead of resisting. Or think of a heated argument at home. Harsh words are spoken, emotions flare, pride demands victory. Most people shout louder, determined to win. But in truth, nobody wins. Hearts are wounded, trust is broken. True strength in that moment is the courage to pause, to breathe, to let silence speak louder than anger, to listen, not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to not be ruled by rage. That pause can change everything. It can open the door to understanding, to reconciliation, to healing. Again, strength here is not force. It is gentleness, and gentleness is often the most powerful act of all. Some may say, this is beautiful in theory, But what about real suffering? What about when we lose someone we love? What about illness, injustice, or betrayal? Can gentleness really endure such storms? The answer is yes. Not because gentleness removes pain, but because it transforms how we hold it. Suffering will come to all of us. No human life is free from it. But suffering does not need to destroy us. Imagine holding a small stone tightly in your fist. After a while, your hand aches, your muscles burn, and the stone feels unbearable. But if you open your palm, the stone is still there, yet the pain is gone. The weight has not changed, but the way you hold it has. This is how awareness transforms suffering. We cannot always remove the stone, but we can change how we hold it. That is true strength. Strength is not found in denying tears. It is found in allowing them to fall without shame. Strength is not found in avoiding fear. It is found in walking with fear without letting it control you. Strength is not found in endless victories. It is found in rising again after each fall, softer and wiser than before. This is the strength of the awakened heart. It is available to every person, in every culture, in every moment. It does not belong to the past. It belongs to now. And it is waiting for you, as we close this first step of our journey. Remember this. The world may continue to demand hardness, but your soul longs for softness. The world may continue to praise endless striving, but your spirit longs for stillness. The world may continue to tell you to fight, but your heart knows that flowing is the way. In the chapters to come, we will see how this gentle strength protects us through awareness, how it helps us face our inner doubts, how it frees us from external chains, and how it allows us to rise like the lotus through the mud of life. Each lesson builds upon the last, guiding us deeper into freedom. Let us carry this truth with us. True strength is not in clenched fists, but in open hands. It is not in fighting the storm, but in standing calmly until it passes. And it is from this place of quiet resilience that we now turn to the next doorway, the unseen shield of awareness. A shield so subtle, yet so powerful, that it can protect the peace of your heart in any circumstance. There are moments in life when words cut deeper than knives. A careless insult, a cruel remark, a judgment spoken without thought. In those moments, our hearts ignite with heat. Anger surges. Pride demands retaliation. The mind screams, "You cannot let this stand." And so, often without thinking, we strike back sometimes with harsh words, sometimes with cold silence, sometimes with actions we later regret. This is the cycle of reaction. It feels powerful in the moment, but afterward it leaves us hollow, ashamed, and exhausted. We wonder, why did I lose control? Why did I let that person dictate my peace? And the answer, simple yet profound, is this: we lacked the shield of awareness. Awareness is not a wall. It is not a heavy armor that cuts us off from life. Awareness is a shield so subtle it can barely be seen, yet so powerful it transforms every encounter. Imagine a pause, a small space between what happens to you and how you respond. In that space lies freedom. Without awareness, we collapse into habit. Someone criticizes us, and we defend. Someone praises us, and we cling. Someone rejects us, and we shrink. But with awareness, we see these impulses rise like waves, and instead of being thrown around by them, we simply watch. The wave rises, peaks, and falls. And in that stillness, we discover a choice. We do not have to react. We can respond with clarity. This is strength at its most refined, the power to choose peace when the world pushes us toward conflict. Think of fire. When someone throws a spark onto dry grass, flames erupt immediately. But if they throw the same spark into a calm river, nothing happens. The spark is swallowed, transformed, rendered harmless. Our untrained minds are like the dry grass ready to ignite at the slightest provocation. But a mind rooted in awareness is like the river. Insults, challenges, disappointments may still fall upon it, but they dissolve without burning. This is not indifference. It is wisdom. It is the understanding that most hurtful actions come from the pain of others. A person who insults you is often carrying their own suffering, their own insecurity, their own wounds. To lash back is to multiply pain. To pause in awareness is to transform poison into peace. We have all seen people who carry this quiet shield. They walk into a room, and no matter how tense the atmosphere, they remain calm. Others may argue, complain, or panic, but they hold steady. Their calmness spreads like ripples in water, soothing those around them. This kind of presence is not luck. It is not personality. It is cultivated. It is the fruit of mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of noticing, of seeing thoughts, emotions, and sensations without immediately clinging to them. At first, it feels small. You notice your breath, the rising and falling of your chest. You notice the sounds around you. But over time, this noticing grows into a shield. When anger rises, you notice it before it controls you. When fear whispers, you see it for what it is. Just a thought, not a truth. And slowly, you become less fragile, less reactive, less enslaved to every passing emotion. Consider how this shield of awareness can transform even a simple moment of frustration. Imagine you are in line at the grocery store. The person in front of you is slow, fumbling with their wallet, and you are late for an appointment. Without awareness, irritation rises. Your jaw tightens. You roll your eyes. By the time you reach the cashier, you are already tense, carrying stress into the rest of your day. But with awareness, the same situation feels different. You notice the irritation rising. You breathe. You soften. You realize the slowness of the line is not personal. Perhaps the person in front of you is elderly, or nervous, or struggling silently. Compassion arises. The line is the same, but your experience has shifted completely. Awareness has turned impatience into patience, frustration into understanding. Or imagine you're scrolling through your phone late at night. A message appears sharp, critical, unfair. Without awareness, your fingers fly. You type a response filled with anger. You press send. Minutes later, regret floods in. But with awareness, you pause. You notice the heat in your chest, the urge in your fingers. You breathe. You put the phone down. You allow the storm of emotion to pass. An hour later, you return, calmer, wiser. You respond differently, or perhaps not at all. The difference is not small. It is the difference between creating conflict and creating peace. It is the difference between feeding suffering and ending it. The Buddha once taught that between stimulus and response, there is a gap, and in that gap lies freedom. This teaching is simple, yet it carries the power to change lives. Awareness creates that gap. Without it, we are slaves to habit. With it, we are free to choose. And choice is the essence of strength. Anyone can react. It takes no wisdom to lash out, but to pause, to see, to respond with clarity. This is mastery. It is the unseen shield that protects not only us, but everyone around us. Some may ask, does awareness mean we never act? Does it mean we let people walk over us? The answer is no. Awareness is not passivity. Awareness is clarity. When someone crosses a boundary, awareness allows us to see the situation without being blinded by rage. We can respond firmly, yet without cruelty. We can defend ourselves, yet without hatred. Awareness does not take away action. It makes action wiser. Think of a skilled martial artist. Their power is not in wild strikes, but in precise movements, calm under pressure. Awareness gives us that same precision in daily life. We do not waste energy on pointless battles. We act only when needed, and we act with compassion, not vengeance. This shield also protects us from our own inner critic. For many people, the harshest words they ever hear are not from others, but from themselves. That voice inside that says, "You are not enough. You will fail. You are broken." Without awareness, we believe that voice. We allow it to shape our self-image, to crush our confidence, to keep us small. But with awareness, we see the voice for what it is, just a thought, a habit of mind, not the truth of who we are. The shield of awareness turns the inner critic into background noise. It frees us to step forward with courage, even when doubt whispers otherwise. It reminds us that we are not our thoughts. We are the awareness that notices them. The practice of awareness may seem simple, but it is profound. Each time you pause, each time you notice, you strengthen the shield. Like training a muscle, it grows with use. At first, you may forget often. You may only notice after the reaction, after the harsh words are spoken. But even then, awareness grows, because noticing after the fact is still noticing. Slowly, the gap expands. You catch yourself sooner. You pause more easily. And over time, this becomes your natural way of being. Life does not stop challenging you, but you stop being crushed by every challenge. You become like the calm river, like the rooted tree, like the mountain unmoved by passing storms. The shield of awareness not only protects us in moments of conflict, but also frees us from the constant push and pull of everyday life. In the modern world, we are bombarded by noise notifications, advertisements, opinions, and demands. Each sound, each flashing screen calls for our reaction. Without awareness, we are pulled in every direction like a leaf tossed by the wind. But with awareness, we anchor ourselves. We notice the urge to check the phone, the craving for validation, the fear of missing out, and in that noticing, we reclaim choice. Instead of being dragged endlessly outward, we return inward to the quiet center of our being. This is how awareness becomes a shield not only against anger or fear, but against distraction, exhaustion, and the slow erosion of peace. Imagine you are walking down a busy street. Billboards scream for your attention. Music blasts from storefronts. People hurry past with anxious faces. You feel your body tighten. Your breath grow shallow. Without awareness, you absorb all of this like a sponge. You carry the tension home, wondering why you feel so restless. But with awareness, the same street becomes a different experience. You notice the noise, the speed, the energy of others, but you do not have to absorb it. You breathe more deeply. You walk more slowly. You smile at one person instead of racing past them. You protect your inner calm, not by shutting out the world, but by remaining rooted within it. The world is the same, but your heart is safe. This is the unseen shield at work. Awareness also allows us to meet life with compassion instead of judgment. When someone cuts us off in traffic, our first instinct may be to label them rude or selfish. But awareness gives us space to see more. Perhaps they are rushing to the hospital. Perhaps they are carrying stress heavier than we can imagine. We may never know the full story, but awareness reminds us that judgment adds nothing, while compassion heals. The shield of awareness is woven with threads of compassion. It is not a cold barrier, but a warm protection that transforms how we see both ourselves and others. Think of how often we judge ourselves. We criticize our mistakes, replay our failures, condemn our weaknesses. These judgments wound us more deeply than any outside voice. But with awareness, we soften. We notice the harsh words forming in our minds. We pause. We remind ourselves, I am human. I am learning. I am allowed to be imperfect. This simple act of noticing creates space for kindness. Instead of being at war with ourselves, we begin to treat ourselves as we would treat a dear friend. This self-compassion does not make us weak. It makes us stronger because we are no longer wasting energy in self-hatred. Our energy can then flow into growth, healing, and love. The shield of awareness also transforms fear. Fear thrives in darkness, in the shadows where it grows unchecked. Awareness shines a light. When you notice fear, when you breathe into it, you discover that fear is often smaller than it seemed. Like a shadow on the wall that looks terrifying until you see the small object casting it. Fear loses its power when illuminated by awareness. Instead of running from fear, you face it. You do not need to fight it. You only need to see it clearly. And in seeing, you are free. This is why the Buddha compared awareness to a lamp in a dark room. The darkness does not need to be fought. It simply disappears when the light is turned on. Another profound power of awareness is its ability to transform pain. Physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, all are part of life. Without awareness, we resist pain. We fight it, we drown in it. But with awareness, we hold pain gently, like holding a crying child. We breathe with it, allowing it to rise and fall. We do not have to pretend the pain is not there. We simply refuse to let it define us. Many people who practice mindfulness during illness describe this shift. Their pain may not vanish, but it becomes more bearable. They discover that suffering is not only in the pain itself, but in the resistance to it. Awareness reduces that resistance, softening the sharp edges of suffering. This is not theory. It is lived truth, proven again and again in the lives of those who walk this path. Perhaps the most remarkable gift of awareness is the way it creates freedom in relationships. So many conflicts in families, friendships, and marriages come not from the events themselves, but from unconscious reactions. A careless word sparks an argument. An old wound is triggered, and the past floods into the present. Without awareness, we repeat the same patterns again and again. But with awareness, we notice the trigger. We feel the wound being touched, and instead of exploding, we pause. We breathe. We choose a different response. This choice breaks the cycle. It allows healing where once there was only repetition. It allows connection where once there was only distance. One pause of awareness can save a relationship. One pause can save a family. One pause can save a life. It is important to remember that this shield does not appear overnight. It is cultivated through practice, like planting a garden. Each breath of mindfulness is a seed. Each pause in the face of anger is water. Each act of compassion is sunlight. Slowly, the shield grows stronger. At first, it may feel fragile, like a thin layer of glass easily broken. But over time, it becomes unshakable, a natural part of who you are. And when it matures, you realize that you do not need to force awareness. It arises by itself, as naturally as the heart beats. This is the fruit of steady practice. The shield of awareness becomes your second nature. In the rush of modern life, many people feel they have no time to cultivate awareness. They say, "I am too busy. I cannot sit in silence. I cannot meditate." But awareness does not require hours in a monastery. It can be practiced anywhere. Washing dishes, walking to the bus, drinking coffee, listening to a friend. Awareness is simply paying attention fully to this moment. When you feel the water on your hands, when you taste your food without distraction, when you listen without planning your reply, that is awareness. These small acts, repeated daily, weave the shield. Over weeks and months, the fabric grows stronger, and you find yourself calmer, clearer, freer. As we close the second step of our journey, let us return to the image of the shield. It is unseen, yet it is real. It protects without isolating. It transforms without hardening. It allows us to walk through the chaos of life with a peace that others can feel. In the next chapter, we will see how this shield empowers us to face our greatest opponent, not someone outside us, but the whisper within. For beyond the insults, beyond the noise, beyond the chaos, there is an adversary far more subtle, the inner critic, the voice of fear, the cravings and doubts that live inside our own minds. To face this inner opponent, we must carry the shield of awareness with us, for it is the only tool sharp enough to expose illusion and gentle enough to free us. When we think about challenges in life, most of us immediately picture the outside world. We think of difficult bosses, demanding schedules, economic pressures, or the harsh words of others. But as the journey of awareness deepens, we begin to notice something unsettling. The greatest struggles are not always outside. The most persistent and cunning adversary lives inside our own minds. It is the whisper of doubt, the surge of craving, the heaviness of guilt, the shadow of shame. This inner opponent is subtle, shape-shifting, and endlessly clever. Unlike external enemies, we cannot walk away from it. It follows us wherever we go, speaking in our own voice, hiding beneath our own thoughts. In ancient Buddhist texts, this force is given a name, Mara. Mara is not an external demon, but the embodiment of delusion, craving, and fear. Mara is the whisper that says, "You are not enough." Mara is the craving that insists, "If only you had more, then you would finally be happy." Mara is the fear that paralyzes us with visions of failure. And the most dangerous trick of Mara is that it disguises itself as truth. It speaks as though it were your own wisdom, when in fact it is only the recycling of old wounds and false beliefs. This is why facing the inner opponent is perhaps the hardest part of the spiritual path. You cannot fight it with fists. You cannot silence it by force. You must expose it with awareness. Think of a stage magician who dazzles the audience with illusions. The magician appears to cut a person in half, to pull a rabbit from a hat, to make objects vanish. The audience gasps because they believe what they see. But once the secret of the trick is revealed, the illusion loses its power. No matter how skillfully the magician repeats the act, you cannot be fooled again. This is how awareness dismantles the inner opponent. Doubt may still whisper, fear may still appear, craving may still rise, but once you recognize their patterns, their hold on you weakens. They are no longer ultimate truths. They are just tricks of the mind. For many people, the inner opponent takes the form of self-doubt. This voice says, "You cannot succeed. You are too weak. You are too late." It appears before new opportunities, before big decisions, before every step toward growth. Without awareness, we believe it. We shrink back. We live small lives, never daring to step beyond the familiar. But with awareness, we hear the voice and say, "Ah, here is Mara again." We see the doubt for what it is, fear wearing the mask of reason. And in that recognition, we take the step anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision to walk forward even as fear speaks. This is the victory over the inner opponent, not silencing it, but refusing to be ruled by it. Another form of the inner opponent is craving. In modern society, craving is fed at every turn. Advertisements tell us we need more. More possessions, more success, more followers, more pleasure. Craving whispers, "If only you had this, then you would be happy." But when we get what we crave, happiness is brief. Soon, the next desire rises. Craving is endless. It enslaves us to an endless cycle of wanting, chasing, and never arriving. Awareness reveals the trap. When craving arises, we pause and notice it. We see the hunger in our chest, the fantasy in our mind, the urgency in our breath. And in that noticing, we remember, Craving is just another trick of Mara. It promises fulfillment, but delivers emptiness. With awareness, we do not have to obey it. We can let the craving rise and fall without chasing it. And in that letting go, a deeper satisfaction arises, the satisfaction of freedom. Guilt and shame are also powerful weapons of the inner opponent. They whisper from the past, replaying old mistakes, dragging us into cycles of regret. You failed before. You will fail again. You are unworthy. Without awareness, these voices dominate us. We carry them like heavy chains, unable to move freely into the present. But awareness changes the story. When guilt arises, we notice it. We breathe with it. We ask, is this guilt pointing me toward wisdom, or is it only keeping me trapped? Sometimes guilt is a teacher, reminding us to act differently in the future. But often guilt is only a ghost, punishing us endlessly for what cannot be undone. Awareness helps us see the difference. It allows us to honor the lessons of the past without being enslaved by them. It frees us to live now, instead of reliving yesterday again and again. The inner opponent is clever because it hides in the ordinary flow of thought. You may wake in the morning, and immediately a thought arises. I am already behind. Today will be too much. Without awareness, that thought sets the tone for the entire day. But with awareness, you notice it as just a thought. You smile gently and say, that is Mara speaking again. And suddenly, the thought loses its weight. It passes like a cloud in the sky. You are free to begin the day with a clear mind, rather than a mind burdened by illusion. It is important to understand that facing the inner opponent is not about destroying it. Mara will always whisper. Craving will always appear. Doubt will always try to sneak back in. The goal is not to erase them, but to recognize them. Recognition is freedom. Imagine a thief who sneaks into a house in darkness. If the lights are off, the thief can move freely, stealing without resistance. But if the lights are turned on, the thief freezes. He may still be there, but his power is gone. Awareness is that light. It does not eliminate the inner opponent, but it exposes it. And exposure takes away its strength. This recognition also opens the door to compassion. When we see how Mara works in our own minds, we understand that others are struggling with the same illusions. The person who lashes out at you may be driven by their own doubts. The person who acts selfishly may be enslaved by their cravings. The person who judges you harshly may be haunted by shame. Awareness of our inner opponent makes us gentler with the struggles of others. We no longer see enemies everywhere. We see fellow travelers caught in the same traps, longing for the same freedom. To practice facing the inner opponent, we do not need grand rituals. We simply need moments of stillness. Each time we sit quietly, each time we breathe with awareness, we become more skilled at recognizing Mara. We begin to notice the patterns, the times of day when doubt is loudest, the triggers that awaken craving, the memories that summon shame. With practice, we become familiar with the tricks. And familiarity is power. The more we recognize the illusions, the less power they have over us. What once felt like chains becomes only a passing shadow. The more closely we observe the inner opponent, the more we realize how many faces it wears. Sometimes it shows up as laziness, whispering, "You can rest later, do it tomorrow." Sometimes it shows up as perfectionism, demanding, "You cannot begin until it is flawless." Sometimes it wears the mask of comparison, constantly reminding us that someone else is richer, stronger, more beautiful, or more successful. And sometimes it comes as despair, the voice that says, "Nothing matters, so why even try?" Each of these masks is Mara in disguise, shaping our inner world in ways we often do not recognize until we stop and look. Clearly, awareness is the lamp that reveals these disguises. Once we see them, they cannot fool us as easily. Consider comparison. Without awareness, scrolling through social media leaves us feeling small, as if our lives are inadequate compared to the curated images of others. With awareness, we pause and remember, these images are not the whole story. Behind every smiling photo may be unspoken struggle. Awareness lifts the mask of illusion, reminding us that joy does not come from comparing lives, but from living our own fully. In this way, the shield of awareness we explored earlier now becomes the sword of clarity, cutting through Mara's deceptions. One of the greatest strengths of awareness is that it transforms the battle with the inner opponent from war into observation. If we try to fight doubt, fear, craving, or shame directly, they often grow stronger. Fighting thoughts is like wrestling with shadows. You exhaust yourself, but the shadows remain. Instead of wrestling, awareness invites us to observe. We sit, we breathe, we notice. The thought arises, and instead of clinging or resisting, we say gently, "This is Mara." We name it. We see it, and in the act of seeing, its grip loosens. The shadow fades under the light. This practice can be applied in daily life, not only in meditation. Imagine you are preparing for a presentation at work. Suddenly the voice arises. You will fail. You will forget your words. Everyone will laugh. Without awareness, the fear spirals, and you may sabotage yourself before you even begin. With awareness, you stop and breathe. You acknowledge the voice. This is fear. This is Mara. You do not push it away, but you do not believe it either. You prepare calmly. You walk into the room, and you speak. Fear may still be present, but it no longer controls you. This is the victory of awareness, not the absence of fear, but freedom from its chains. The same is true with craving. Picture yourself late at night, standing in front of the refrigerator. You are not truly hungry, but a craving arises. Sugar, comfort, escape. Without awareness, your hand reaches automatically, and you eat more than you need. With awareness, you pause. You notice the craving in your body, the image in your mind, the urge in your hand. You breathe. You ask, am I truly hungry, or am I seeking comfort? Perhaps you choose to eat, but you do so consciously, savoring each bite. Or perhaps you close the refrigerator, realizing that the craving will pass. Either way, you are free. The craving does not own you. This freedom, repeated in small choices, becomes profound strength over time. One of the most powerful stories from the Buddha's life illustrates this truth. On the night of his awakening, Mara came to him with all his forces, fear, temptation, doubt, and distraction. The earth shook, the sky darkened, demons appeared. But the Buddha did not fight. He sat calmly, in unshakable awareness. He touched the earth with his hand, calling it to witness his right to seek truth. Mara's forces vanished, powerless against his calm. This story is not just myth. It is metaphor. Each of us faces our own Mara. The storms may seem overwhelming, but if we sit in awareness, rooted in truth, the storms pass. Mara loses his power, and we discover that freedom was never about conquering the world outside. It was always about mastering the world within. Facing the inner opponent also requires patience. Many people grow frustrated when fear or craving continues to arise even after years of practice. They think, why am I not free yet? Why is Mara still here? But the presence of Mara does not mean failure. It means you are alive. The human mind will always generate thoughts, emotions, and urges. The point is not to erase them, but to change your relationship with them. Instead of being their prisoner, you become their observer. Instead of being their slave, you become their master. Even the Buddha, after his awakening, was still visited by Mara. The difference was that Mara could no longer deceive him. And so it can be for us. The voices may never stop, But our freedom comes in knowing we no longer have to obey doubt in this way. The inner opponent becomes our greatest teacher. Doubt teaches us courage. Craving teaches us simplicity. Fear teaches us presence. Shame teaches us compassion. Each obstacle, when met with awareness, transforms into wisdom. The very forces that once enslaved us become the soil of our growth. Like the lotus flower rising from mud, our strength emerges from the struggles we once thought would destroy us. This is the paradox of the path. Mara appears to block us, but in truth, Mara reveals the way. Every whisper of doubt is an invitation to trust. Every surge of craving is an invitation to let go. Every stab of guilt is an invitation to forgive. The inner opponent is not only an enemy, it is also a guide. As we close this part of our journey, remember this: you are not your doubt. You are not your craving. You are not your shame. You are the awareness that sees them. You are the space in which they arise and fall. And that space is vast, luminous, and free. The inner opponent may continue to visit, but with awareness, you can greet it like an old acquaintance. Ah, Mara, I see you. You may sit with me if you like, but you cannot control me. And in that simple recognition, you discover victory. Not the victory of battle, but the victory of freedom. From this foundation, we now turn outward once again. For just as we face illusions within, we are also bound by illusions outside, by the shifting winds of praise and blame, gain and loss, pleasure and pain. To face these external chains, we must carry the same awareness, the same calm, the same strength. For true freedom is not only release from the enemy within, but also release from the world's unstable tides. There is a quiet truth that few of us stop to question. Most of our happiness and suffering is chained to forces outside of us. A compliment lifts our mood, while a criticism crushes it. A raise at work fills us with pride, while a setback leaves us feeling worthless. We wake with energy when praised, and we fall into despair when ignored. In Buddhism, these shifting currents are called the 8 worldly winds: pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, fame and disrepute. Like winds, they blow without warning. One day they lift us high, the next they knock us to the ground. And as long as our peace depends on them, we are never truly free. Consider how much of modern life is built upon these winds. Social media thrives on them. Each like or share feels like praise. Each absence feels like blame. Our worth becomes measured in numbers, always fragile, always temporary. Workplaces are fueled by gain and lost promotions, raises, awards on one side. Layoffs, rejections, and failures on the other. Even within families, approval and disapproval swirl like constant weather. A child longs for praise from parents. A partner longs for affirmation from their loved one. When it comes, the heart swells. When it does not, the heart sinks. These chains are invisible, yet they bind us more tightly than iron. They dictate our moods, our decisions, even our sense of who we are. But what if freedom is not found in chasing approval, but in stepping beyond it? What if the truest stability comes not from avoiding these winds, but from standing steady, no matter which direction they blow? Ancient wisdom teaches us that liberation is possible when we anchor ourselves in something deeper than external opinion. This is not about rejecting pleasure or ignoring praise. It is about recognizing them as impermanent, as unreliable guides for the heart. Pleasure fades. Praise shifts. Gain can be lost in an instant. If we build our identity on these sands, we will always feel unstable. But if we build our identity on inner values, on compassion, integrity, mindfulness, then no wind can sweep us away. Imagine a tree with shallow roots. A strong wind arrives and the tree topples. Now imagine a tree with roots deep in the earth. Storms come, winds rage, yet the tree remains. Our lives can be like that second tree when we root ourselves in inner truth instead of external approval. Praise may come, blame may come, but we stand. Gain may rise, loss may fall, but we remain whole. This does not mean we are indifferent. It means we are free. Freedom is not the absence of change. It is the ability to remain steady within change. Think of a musician who performs on stage. If they play for applause alone, their joy rises and falls with the crowd. A loud cheer lifts them. A quiet audience devastates them. But if they play for the love of music itself, their joy remains steady. Applause is welcome, but not required. Their fulfillment comes from within. In the same way, our lives transform when we act from inner values rather than external validation. We work not only for reward, but for the integrity of the work itself. We love not only to be loved back, but because love itself is our nature. We give not only for recognition, but because generosity is who we are. In this way, we break the chains of the worldly winds, but these winds are subtle. Praise, especially, can be more dangerous than blame. Blame may sting, but at least it awakens us to discomfort. Praise, on the other hand, inflates the ego quietly, making us dependent on applause. We begin to crave it, to shape our behavior for it, to lose ourselves in its glow. And when it disappears, as it always does, we collapse. This is why the teachings caution us. Praise is no more solid than blame. Gain no more secure than loss. To live wisely is to accept both with equanimity, neither intoxicated by one nor crushed by the other. This equanimity is not coldness. It is clarity. It allows us to enjoy pleasure without clinging, to learn from pain without despairing, to receive praise without arrogance, to hear blame without collapse. It is the balance of a tightrope walker, steady not because the rope is stable, but because their center is. Each step is grounded in awareness. Each breath is rooted in presence. And so, even when winds swirl, they move gracefully forward. This is the freedom available to us. Not the power to control the winds, but the wisdom to walk with them unharmed. To practice this, we can begin in small ways. The next time someone praises you, pause before clinging to the warmth. Breathe, smile, and remind yourself, this is pleasant, but it is passing. The next time someone criticizes you, pause before collapsing into shame. Breathe. Ask yourself, is there truth here I can learn from? Or is this only another wind passing by? In both cases, remember, you are more than praise, more than blame. You are the awareness that notices both. This practice is not about dulling life. It is about freeing yourself from being tossed around like a leaf. It is about learning to be the tree, deeply rooted, steady through all seasons. Modern culture often resists this teaching. It insists that happiness is found in gain, fame, and praise. But look closely at those who have everything: wealth, fame, beauty. How many of them live in peace? How many of them still suffer deeply, bound by the same winds as everyone else? This reveals the truth. External abundance cannot guarantee inner freedom. True freedom is a state of mind available to anyone in any circumstance. It is not reserved for the powerful. It is available to the student studying quietly, the worker balancing 2 jobs, the parent raising children with love. Freedom begins when we stop handing our peace to the changing winds of the world. There is a story of a wise monk who was once praised by a king. The king told him, "You are the most enlightened man I have ever met. Your wisdom shines brighter than the sun." The monk bowed politely and said nothing. Days later, the same king, angered by the monk's refusal to flatter him, insulted him harshly. "You are nothing but a beggar in rags," the king spat. Again, the monk bowed politely and said nothing. A disciple asked the monk afterward, "Master, how could you remain silent in both praise and insult?" The monk smiled and replied, "If someone hands you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" In this way, he showed that praise and blame belong to the giver, not the receiver. Freedom comes when we choose not to be bound by either dot. This does not mean we never listen to feedback. Blame can sometimes reveal truth. Praise can sometimes encourage growth. But we listen with discernment, not dependence. We ask, "Is there wisdom here that I can use?" If yes, we accept it with humility. If no, we let it pass like wind through trees. The difference is that our peace no longer depends on the words of others. Our compass is within, guided by values deeper than public opinion. This is what it means to live with integrity, to act not for applause or fear of criticism, but because it is right. And when we live this way, we find a strange paradox: people trust us more, respect us more, because they sense our steadiness. We are no longer puppets pulled by strings of approval. We are free to see how deeply we are chained to external forces. Look at how much of our identity is shaped by labels. We say, "I am successful," when money flows. We say, "I am a failure," when money is lost. We say, "I am loved," when others smile upon us. We say, "I am worthless," when they turn away. But who are we beneath these shifting labels? Awareness reveals that these are only masks. You are not your wealth or poverty. You are not your fame or obscurity. You are not your praise or blame. You are the consciousness beneath them, the awareness that notices them, the life that flows through them. And that awareness cannot be diminished by loss or inflated by gain. It is steady, radiant, whole. To rest in this truth is to taste freedom. There is an exercise that can help us practice this freedom. Imagine holding a feather in your palm. A gentle breeze lifts it, swirls it, drops it again. The feather has no choice. It is at the mercy of the wind. Now imagine standing as a mountain. The same wind blows, but the mountain does not move. Both the feather and the mountain feel the wind, but only one is free. Each time we anchor ourselves in awareness, we move from feather to mountain. We feel the winds, but we are not carried away. We notice the rise and fall of pleasure and pain, but we do not collapse under them. We live in the same world, but with a different freedom. This freedom brings deep peace, but it also brings deep courage. When we are no longer enslaved by gain or loss, we can act boldly for what matters. Many people compromise their values because they fear losing approval. They stay silent when they see injustice. They conform when they know something is wrong. But when your sense of worth no longer depends on praise, you can speak truth. When your identity is not tied to gain, you can choose generosity over greed. When your peace is not bound to fame, you can live authentically instead of chasing appearances. Freedom from external chains is not only personal peace, it is the foundation of ethical strength. It empowers us to live as we truly are, not as the winds demand. This path does not mean we isolate ourselves from the world. We still enjoy pleasure. We still welcome praise. We still appreciate gain. But we hold them lightly, like holding a butterfly on the palm. We do not cage it. We do not cling to it. We allow it to land, to stay for a moment, and to fly away. This lightness is the essence of freedom. It transforms ordinary life. Imagine receiving praise at work and simply smiling, grateful, but not inflated. Imagine facing criticism and listening calmly, learning what is useful, discarding what is not. Imagine losing a possession and feeling sorrow, but not despair, because you know that nothing truly belongs to you. Imagine being forgotten by the world and still walking with dignity, because your worth comes from within. This is not fantasy. This is the fruit of practice. It is worth asking, If we do not free ourselves from these chains, what happens? We live like slaves to circumstance. Our moods rise and fall like a yo-yo. Our peace is fragile, destroyed by a single harsh word. Our lives become a constant chase, chasing pleasure, chasing gain, chasing praise, chasing fame. And in that chase, we lose ourselves. We forget the stillness at our core. We forget the quiet joy that comes not from getting, but from being. The cost of these chains is immense. Anxiety, burnout, disconnection, despair. And yet, the key has always been in our hands. Awareness is the key. Integrity is the door. Freedom is waiting. As this chapter closes, remember that freedom does not mean escaping life. It means meeting life with a steady heart. It means walking through storms without losing your balance. It means standing firm in your values, even when the winds blow strong. The chains of gain and loss, praise and blame, fame and obscurity may never disappear, but they no longer bind you. You are the mountain. You are the tree with deep roots. You are the awareness that remains steady as the winds pass. And from this freedom, a new kind of strength blossoms, a strength that allows us to embrace simplicity, to choose less in a world that demands more, to find power not in accumulation, but in release. We live in a culture that worships more. More possessions, more opportunities, more information, more noise. From childhood, we are taught that success means accumulation. A bigger house, a newer car, a higher salary, a busier schedule. Even in our personal lives, we strive for more experiences, more achievements, more recognition. Yet, as the piles of more grow higher, many people find themselves feeling emptier. The closets overflow, the calendars are packed, the minds race without pause, and still, peace is nowhere to be found. It is as if we are starving in the middle of a feast, surrounded by abundance, yet unsatisfied. The truth is that happiness does not come from more. Often, it comes from less. Ancient monks carried with them a single begging bowl. At first glance, it might seem like a symbol of poverty, a reminder of what they lacked. But in truth, it was a symbol of profound freedom. The bowl was empty, and in its emptiness lay strength. It was ready to receive whatever came, and it needed nothing more than what was given. This is the heart of simplicity, to release the clutter that distracts us, to make space for what truly nourishes. Just as a full bowl cannot receive, a crowded mind cannot rest. Just as a packed schedule cannot breathe, a life overloaded with possessions and obligations cannot know peace. To choose less is not deprivation. It is liberation. Think of a room filled with clutter. The floor is crowded with boxes, the shelves stacked with objects, the air heavy with dust. No matter how beautiful the room once was, its beauty is hidden. But clear the space, remove what is unnecessary, and suddenly light fills the room. You can breathe again. The same is true for the mind. Our mental rooms are filled with endless clutter worries, desires, regrets, plans, distractions. We think more will solve the problem, but more only crowds the space further. When we choose less, when we release what is unnecessary, our minds become spacious. In that space, clarity shines. Creativity blossoms. Peace enters. This truth is visible even in small daily habits. Many people wake each morning and immediately reach for their phones. They scroll through news, messages, notifications, filling their minds with noise before they even rise from bed. By the time they stand, their mental bowl is already full, so full that there is no room for peace. But imagine starting the morning differently. You rise, you breathe, you sit in silence for a moment. You let your mind be empty before the day fills it. That emptiness is not weakness. It is strength. It is the ground from which all wise action flows. The power of less also shows itself in how we relate to time. In modern culture, being busy is worn like a badge of honor. People boast of their packed calendars, their endless to-do lists, and lack of sleep. But beneath the pride often lies exhaustion, resentment, and a quiet despair. Busyness is not the same as purpose. Doing more is not the same as living well. To choose less in time is to say no to what drains us, to say yes only to what matters. It is to create margins in our days, space for rest, for presence, for being human. A life without margin is like a song without pauses. No matter how beautiful the notes, without silence, there is no music. Choosing less is choosing music over noise. Of course, choosing less is not easy. We live in a system designed to keep us consuming, comparing, and striving. Advertisements whisper that happiness is one purchase away. Social media fuels the illusion that everyone else is living more exciting lives. The fear of missing out drives us to fill our schedules, our homes, and our minds with more than we can carry. To step off this treadmill feels risky, even rebellious. But ancient wisdom tells us clearly, true power lies in stepping away from endless craving. When you release what is unnecessary, you discover a deeper kind of abundance, an abundance not of things, but of peace. Imagine two people. One owns a mansion filled with objects, travels constantly, and works tirelessly to afford it all. Yet at night, they lie awake, restless, burdened by debt and worry. The other lives in a small, simple home with only what they need. Their days are spacious, their evenings quiet, their heart unburdened. Who is truly rich? Modern society may point to the mansion, but the one who is free from craving, who is content with less, is the one who holds real wealth. Wealth is not measured by what you have, but by what you no longer need. This practice of less does not mean we abandon all responsibility or reject the beauty of life. It means we become intentional. We ask, does this bring me peace, or does it clutter my spirit? Does this add meaning, or does it distract me from what matters? In asking these questions, we begin to see clearly. We begin to strip away the excess and return to the essence. The Buddha described this as living with noble simplicity. It is not about rejecting the world, but about engaging with it more wisely. It is about carrying only what nourishes the heart, letting go of all that weighs it down. And here lies the paradox. Less opens the door to more. When we release distractions, we gain clarity. When we let go of endless possessions, we gain freedom. When we stop chasing every opportunity, we gain presence. Less does not leave us empty. Less makes us whole. Just as the empty bowl is ready to receive, the empty mind is ready to live. And in that openness, life flows in with greater richness than we ever imagined. There is a story of a man who once visited a monk, carrying a bag full of possessions. He said, "Master, I cannot find peace. My mind is restless. My heart is heavy. Please teach me how to live freely." The monk looked at him and asked, "Why do you carry that heavy bag everywhere you go?" The man replied, "Because it is mine. Inside are all the things I need." The monk smiled gently and said, "Then your bag is not only on your shoulder, it is also on your mind." The man suddenly understood. His possessions were not only physical objects, but also mental burdens. In clinging to them, he was carrying weight that kept him from peace. This is the truth of modern life. What we hold on to outside often becomes what we cannot release inside. Letting go of excess begins in the physical world, but ripples into the mind. When you clear a closet, you notice space in your room and also in your thoughts. When you reduce your obligations, you notice time opening in your day and also in your breath. This is why practices of simplicity are powerful. They are not only about minimalism as a lifestyle trend. They are about cultivating an inner spaciousness that makes room for awareness, compassion, and joy. A cluttered environment fuels a cluttered mind. A spacious environment reflects and encourages a spacious heart. This is not about deprivation. It is about creating space for what truly matters. Choosing less also reshapes our relationships. Many conflicts arise not from genuine need, but from unmet cravings. We expect others to fill the emptiness we feel inside. We demand more affection, more recognition, more reassurance. But when we begin to cultivate contentment with less, we stop demanding so much from those around us. We love more freely, without clinging. We appreciate what is given, instead of resenting what is withheld. Relationships flourish when they are not burdened by endless craving. The power of less allows love to breathe. Even in our spiritual journey, the temptation of more can become a trap. We seek more teachings, more books, more retreats, more experiences. While learning is valuable, sometimes the hunger for more wisdom becomes another form of craving. We forget that the essence of practice is not in collecting teachings, but in living them. A single breath, taken with full awareness, contains the whole truth of the path. A single act of compassion reveals the heart of enlightenment. The power of less reminds us to return to the basics, to trust simplicity, to realize that the truth is not hidden in endless accumulation, but in the depth of presence. This principle of less applies not only to possessions and time, but also to thoughts. The mind produces thousands of thoughts each day, most of them repetitive, anxious, or unnecessary. Without awareness, we chase each thought as if it were important, filling our mental bowl with clutter. But when we practice noticing without clinging, the unnecessary thoughts fall away. We discover that we do not need to think more to live wisely. In fact, wisdom often comes in the silence between thoughts. The less noise in the mind, the more clearly we see. This is why meditation feels like a return to sanity. It is not about forcing the mind to stop thinking, but about choosing less attachment, less distraction, less entanglement. There is an old saying, the more you know, the less you need. This does not mean rejecting knowledge. It means that as wisdom deepens, we recognize what truly matters. We no longer need endless stimulation to feel alive. We no longer need endless possessions to feel secure. We no longer need endless approval to feel worthy. Simplicity becomes power. Contentment becomes wealth. Letting go becomes freedom. And in this freedom, life tastes sweeter, because it is no longer drowned in excess. To live with less is not to live without joy. On the contrary, joy deepens when it is not buried beneath clutter. Imagine drinking a glass of cool water on a hot day. The simplicity of it feels profound. Imagine sitting quietly with a loved one, saying nothing, simply being together. That simplicity is precious. Joy does not require constant entertainment. Joy blooms in presence. The power of less teaches us to notice what is already here, to savor it fully, to realize that life itself is the treasure we were chasing all along. As we close this part of the journey, remember the image of the empty bowl. In its emptiness lies its greatest power. A full bowl can receive nothing more, but an empty bowl is always ready. In the same way, a crowded life cannot hold peace, but a spacious life is always open to it. The world may continue to shout for more, but your heart longs for less, not because less is lack, but because less is freedom. When you release the clutter, when you choose simplicity, you uncover the richness that was always waiting within. And from this freedom, we now turn to the next truth, the art of letting go, a practice that deepens simplicity into surrender, teaching us that the greatest strength comes not from holding tighter, but from releasing our grip entirely. There is a saying that many people repeat without truly understanding it. Just let it go. We hear it when we are angry, when we are grieving, when we are clinging to something we cannot change. But in truth, letting go is not easy. It is one of the most difficult lessons we can face because it asks us to release the very things we believe we need to survive. We cling to possessions, believing they keep us safe. We cling to relationships, believing they define our worth. We cling to identities, believing they tell us who we are. And yet, the tighter we hold, the more we suffer. The art of letting go is not about loss, it is about freedom. It is about discovering that release is not emptiness, but space for something greater to arise. Think of a child on the beach holding a handful of sand. The more tightly the child squeezes, the faster the sand slips away. But if the hand opens, the sand rests gently in the palm. Life is the same. When we cling desperately, we lose what we try to hold. When we open our hands, we discover that what remains is enough. Letting go is not a single act. It is a way of living. It is the practice of softening our grip on everything: our possessions, our plans, our grudges, our fears. Each time we release, we breathe more freely. Each time we surrender, we become lighter. This is the paradox of the path. We gain more by holding less. One of the deepest attachments we carry is to the past. Memories of mistakes, betrayals, and regrets weigh heavily on us. We replay them in our minds, punishing ourselves again and again for what cannot be undone. But clinging to the past is like carrying a bag of stones on our back. Each step grows heavier, and yet we refuse to set it down. Letting go of the past does not mean forgetting. It means forgiving. It means honoring the lessons, then releasing the pain. The Buddha taught that clinging to anger is like holding a hot coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. You are Ra, the one who gets burned. To forgive is to drop the coal. It is to choose freedom over fire, that we also cling to the future. We build castles in our minds, planning endlessly, worrying constantly, trying to control what has not yet arrived. This clinging steals our peace long before the future even comes. Letting go of the future does not mean carelessness. It means trust. It means living fully in the present while allowing tomorrow to unfold. It means planting seeds with care, then releasing attachment to the harvest. The farmer tills the soil, waters the field, and waits. They cannot force the sun to shine or the rain to fall. In the same way, we act with intention but let go of control. We do what we can, and we trust life with the rest. But perhaps the hardest thing to release is not the past or the future, but the illusion of control itself. We believe that if we hold tightly to our schedules, tightly to our relationships, tightly to our possessions, we can keep life stable. Yet life is not stable. It is change itself. Seasons shift, bodies age, relationships transform, circumstances rise and fall. To cling to permanence in a world of impermanence is to guarantee suffering. Letting go means opening to change, flowing with it instead of fighting it. It means saying yes to the truth of impermanence. And in that yes, we discover peace. There is a story of a monk crossing a river. He builds a raft to carry him across the strong current. When he reaches the other side, he bows to the raft in gratitude. Then he leaves it behind and continues his journey. Imagine if he had clung to the raft, carrying it on his back through fields and forests. It would no longer be useful. It would only weigh him down. This is how we often live, carrying old rafts long after we have crossed the river. We cling to beliefs, habits, even relationships that once helped us, but now only burden us. Letting go is the wisdom of setting down the raft. It is gratitude without attachment. It is honoring the past without dragging it endlessly forward. Letting go also means releasing the stories we tell about ourselves. We cling to identities. I am successful. I am a failure. I am strong. I am broken. These labels may comfort us for a time, but they also trap us. When life shifts, the labels crack, and we suffer. But who are we beneath the stories? Awareness reveals that we are more fluid than any label can capture. We are not fixed identities. We are a living flow of breath, thought, and experience. Letting go of the stories does not erase us. It frees us to live authentically, moment by moment, without being bound to who we think we must be. Of course, letting go often feels frightening. We fear that if we release, we will lose everything. But the truth is the opposite. When we cling, our hands are full, and nothing new can enter. When we release, space opens for life to bring gifts we could not have imagined. A person clinging to one relationship may miss the love waiting just beyond. A person clinging to one dream may miss the greater path unfolding before them. Letting go is not loss. It is openness. It is faith that life is larger than our grip. The art of letting go is not about a single grand surrender. It is about small releases, practiced daily. It is about noticing the tension in your body when you cling and breathing into it. It is about catching the repetitive thought of regret and gently setting it down. It is about smiling at your own fear of change and choosing to trust anyway. Each small act of letting go strengthens the muscle of surrender. And slowly, life feels lighter. Slowly, freedom becomes natural. There is a moment in every life when letting go is no longer a choice, but a necessity. We see it most clearly in death. No matter how much wealth we have gathered, no matter how many relationships we have clung to, no matter how many achievements we have claimed, in the final breath, all must be released. This truth can seem frightening, yet it is also liberating. Death is the great teacher of letting go, reminding us that clinging is temporary and surrender is inevitable. The art of letting go is learning to practice this surrender now, not only at the end. It is learning to release little by little, so that when the final release comes, we are ready. Instead of fearing loss, we live in harmony with impermanence. Instead of resisting change, we embrace it as the nature of all things. One of the most powerful examples of letting go comes from grief. When someone we love is taken from us, our hearts ache. We want desperately to hold them, to bring them back, to keep them close. Yet no amount of clinging can change reality. To hold tightly to what is gone is to suffer endlessly. But to let go does not mean to stop loving. It means to love differently. It means to release the form, but to keep the essence alive in memory, in gratitude, in compassion for others. Letting go in grief transforms sorrow into tenderness, despair into depth. We do not forget. We remember with gentleness, and in remembering, we are freed from being imprisoned by pain. Another place where letting go is vital is in forgiveness. When we are wronged, anger burns. We carry resentment like a heavy stone in our chest. We tell ourselves that holding on to anger protects us, that it keeps us strong. But in truth, it poisons us. The Buddha taught that resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Forgiveness is the act of setting the stone down. It does not excuse the wrong. It does not erase the wound. It frees us from carrying the weight of hatred. To forgive is to let go of the need for revenge, to choose peace over punishment. It is not a gift to the other person alone. It is a gift to ourselves. Letting go also reshapes how we live with uncertainty. Life is unpredictable. Plans fail, opportunities vanish, health changes, relationships shift. We spend much of our lives trying to control the uncontrollable, tightening our grip around the unknown. But control is an illusion. Letting go of the need for certainty opens the door to peace. It allows us to walk forward with trust instead of fear, to embrace change as part of the journey rather than as an enemy. This is the art of surrender, not giving up, but giving in to life's flow. A river does not resist the bends in its path. It moves gracefully, and in its surrender, lies its strength. In daily life, we can practice letting go in countless small ways. When someone cuts us off in traffic, instead of clinging to anger, we release. When a conversation does not go as planned, instead of replaying it endlessly, we release. When our bodies do not meet the expectations of youth, instead of clinging to an old image, we release. Each release is a liberation. Each surrender creates space for peace. The art of letting go is not only for grand moments of loss, it is for the ordinary moments that fill each day. There is a practice in some monasteries where monks create intricate mandalas from colored sand, spending hours or even days crafting them with great care. Once complete, the mandala is swept away in a single motion. This is not destruction. It is teaching. It shows that beauty is impermanent, that clinging is futile, that true wisdom is the ability to create fully and then release fully. This practice mirrors our lives. We build careers, relationships, identities, all beautiful, all fragile. To live wisely is to give ourselves fully to each creation, and then, when the time comes, to release without regret. This is the art of letting go, to love deeply, to live fully, and to surrender gracefully. Some people fear that letting go means passivity, that it means abandoning responsibility or withdrawing from life. But the opposite is true. Letting go empowers us to engage more fully. When we release attachment to outcomes, we are free to act with clarity. When we release fear of failure, we are free to take risks. When we release obsession with control, we are free to flow with creativity. Letting go does not weaken us, it strengthens us. It removes the chains that keep us small and opens the door to a larger life. It is not an end, but a beginning. As this chapter closes, let us return to the image of open hands. Life is always placing things in our palms: relationships, opportunities, challenges, gifts. If we clutch them tightly, we live in fear of loss. If we open our hands, we can receive fully and release freely. Open hands cannot lose because they were never trying to hold. Open hands are ready for life. This is the art of letting go. To live with hands open, to walk with heart unburdened, to trust that release is not emptiness, but space for something greater. And from this space, we now move to the next truth, the urgency of life, the fire that reminds us that time is short, that every moment matters, and that awareness of death can awaken us to truly live. Life feels long when we are young. Days stretch endlessly, summers seem eternal, and the future feels like a wide open road with no end in sight. But as the years pass, time begins to move differently. Weeks vanish in a blur, months collapse into seasons, and we find ourselves asking, where did it all go? The truth is that life is fragile, fleeting, and uncertain. We do not know how many days remain for us, or for the people we love. And yet, most of us live as if we have forever. We postpone joy, we delay forgiveness, we put off our dreams, we tell ourselves, someday I will live fully, but someday is not promised. The urgency of life is not a threat. It is an invitation to wake up, to live deeply, to treasure every moment as though it were our last. The Buddha taught that remembering death is not morbid, it is liberating. Death is certain, but the time of death is uncertain. To hold this truth close does not rob us of peace. It sharpens it. It reminds us not to waste time on trivial fights, endless distractions, or shallow pursuits. When we know time is precious, we choose more wisely. We say the words of love today instead of waiting. We mend the broken bond now instead of carrying regret. We pursue what matters most instead of burying ourselves in what does not. Awareness of impermanence is not meant to frighten us. It is meant to wake us from the sleep of postponement. Imagine holding a delicate glass in your hand. You know it could break at any moment. Because of this, you treat it with care. You savor its beauty. You do not take it for granted. Life is the same. When we forget its fragility, we waste it carelessly. But when we remember, we live more attentively. We taste our food instead of rushing. We listen to our loved ones instead of half hearing. We walk outside and notice the sky, the trees, the air on our skin. Each moment becomes vivid, radiant, alive. The urgency of life is not about panic. It is about presence. It is about waking up to the miracle that is already here. There is a story of a man who asked a teacher, "What is the most important moment in life? What is the most important person? What is the most important action?" The teacher replied, "The most important moment is now. The most important person is the one in front of you. The most important action is love." These simple words contain profound wisdom. We often waste time obsessing about the future or replaying the past, ignoring the moment that is actually alive. But the present is the only place we can live, the only place we can love, the only place we can awaken. To delay is to lose. To be present is to truly live. Many people believe they will live more fully when circumstances change, when they retire, when they earn more, when they find the right partner, when they move to the right place. But death teaches us that there may be no later. The only time to live is now. This is why the Buddha urged his followers to practice as if their hair were on fire, because time is burning away, moment by moment. Each breath is precious. Each day is a gift. The urgency of life is the call to stop postponing peace, to stop delaying compassion, to stop waiting for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is always now. When we live with this urgency, our priorities shift. We no longer measure success by how much we have accumulated, but by how deeply we have loved, how fully we have been present, how sincerely we have practiced. We realize that arguments over small matters are not worth the time they consume. We see that chasing endless possessions is not worth the life it costs. We understand that time spent in awareness is never wasted, while time spent in distraction is the real loss. Urgency awakens clarity. Clarity awakens courage. Courage awakens freedom. This urgency also awakens gratitude. When we remember that each moment could be our last, we begin to cherish what we once ignored. The simple act of drinking water feels precious. The laughter of a child feels like a miracle. The touch of a loved one becomes a treasure. Gratitude deepens not by adding more to our lives, but by seeing more clearly what is already here. Urgency strips away the illusion of permanence, and gratitude blooms in its place. We realize that life is not owed to us. Every day is borrowed. Every breath is a blessing. To live as if time is infinite is to live asleep. To live with gratitude for each breath is to live awake. There is a famous teaching in Zen that says, "Live as if you were already dead." At first, it sounds harsh, even depressing. But its meaning is not despair, it is awakening. To live as if you were already dead means to stop postponing life, to stop clinging to illusions of permanence, to stop wasting time on what does not matter. When you realize that death could come at any moment, you begin to live each moment with a fierce tenderness. You stop saying, "I'll tell them I love them tomorrow." You stop saying, "I'll chase my dream later." You stop assuming there will always be another chance. Instead, you love now, you forgive now, you begin now. Death becomes the teacher that shows you how to live. Consider how many people, when facing a serious illness or a near-death experience, suddenly see life differently. Colors seem brighter. Relationships feel more important. Small annoyances no longer matter. They realize that the time they wasted on resentment, comparison, or trivial pursuits cannot be reclaimed. Some call this a wake-up call. But we do not need to wait for illness or crisis to awaken. We can remember the fragility of life every day and allow it to guide us into deeper presence. The urgency of life is not about fearing death, it is about honoring life. Think of time as a bank account. Each morning, you wake with a certain number of hours deposited into your account. How will you spend them? You cannot save them for later. You cannot carry them over to tomorrow. At midnight, whatever you have not spent disappears forever. Most of us spend these hours without awareness, scattering them on distractions, anxieties, and endless scrolling. But when we recognize the urgency of life, we spend them differently. We invest them in what matters most: love, kindness, awareness, presence. We realize that time is not just money, it is life itself. To waste time is to waste life. To honor time is to honor existence. Living with urgency does not mean rushing through life in a panic. Quite the opposite. It means slowing down enough to actually be present. Imagine drinking a cup of tea with awareness. You feel the warmth in your hands, the aroma rising, the taste on your tongue. For those few minutes, you are fully alive. Now imagine gulping the tea while distracted by your phone, barely noticing it at all. Which moment was more urgent? The first. Urgency is not about speed, it is about depth. It is about living so fully in each moment that nothing is left unlived. This awareness of life's fragility also transforms how we relate to others. When we remember that the people around us could be gone tomorrow, we treat them with more care. We are quicker to forgive, slower to anger. We listen more deeply, love more openly. We stop taking relationships for granted. The urgency of life teaches us that every interaction could be the last. And so we choose kindness, because why waste our limited time on cruelty? We choose love, because why waste it on hate? We choose presence, because nothing else is guaranteed. Urgency also inspires us to pursue our true calling. How many dreams are buried in graveyards, never lived because their owners waited for the right time? How many lives are half-lived because fear of failure outweighed the risk of trying? The urgency of life whispers, there is no right time, only now. If you long to write, begin today. If you long to travel, take the first step now. If you long to heal a relationship, speak today. Waiting is the greatest thief of life. Urgency is the reminder that courage cannot wait. It is the fire that burns away excuses and awakens action. And yet, the urgency of life is not heavy. It is freeing. When you live as if each moment matters, you stop carrying regrets about the past. You stop clinging to fantasies of the future. You stop wasting energy on what drains you. Instead, you focus on what is real, here and now. You laugh more easily. You love more fully. You live more honestly. Urgency sharpens presence, and presence is the essence of peace. The paradox is clear. When we live with the awareness of death, we begin to truly live. As we step forward from this chapter, carry this truth with you. Life is not waiting. Each breath is a gift, and each day is a chance to awaken. Do not postpone love. Do not postpone peace. Do not postpone joy. The urgency of life is the most compassionate reminder you will ever receive. And from this urgency, we move naturally into the next teaching, the gentle force of compassion, the strength that arises not from fear of death, but from love for life, and from the deep recognition that every being is as fragile and precious as you are. When we reflect on the urgency of life, one truth shines clearly. If time is short, then what we do with it must matter. And among all possible choices, perhaps the most powerful is compassion. Compassion is not weakness, nor is it pity. Compassion is the strength of an open heart, the courage to feel the suffering of others, and to respond with kindness. In a world that often rewards competition, speed, and self-interest, compassion may seem soft. Yet in reality, it is one of the strongest forces we can cultivate. It heals wounds no medicine can touch. It bridges divides no politics can mend. It transforms strangers into kin and enemies into teachers. Compassion is the gentle force that shapes not only our relationships, but our entire way of being. To understand compassion, we must begin with empathy, the ability to feel with others. When a child cries and we feel a tug in our chest, that is empathy. When a friend struggles and we ache alongside them, that is empathy. But compassion takes empathy a step further. Compassion not only feels, but also acts. It asks, how can I help? Compassion is not content to observe suffering. It moves to ease it. Sometimes the action is grand rescuing, protecting, healing. More often, it is simple listening, comforting, being present. Compassion does not require us to fix everything. It asks us only to show up, to care, to offer what we can. Think of the times when you yourself have suffered. What helped most? Was it someone solving your problems, or was it someone sitting beside you, holding your hand, reminding you that you are not alone? Compassion does not always erase pain, but it makes pain bearable. It says, I see you. I hear you. I am with you. In this simple presence lies profound healing. Many of the world's wounds, loneliness, despair, division, are not caused by lack of solutions, but by lack of compassion. We do not need perfect answers. We need open hearts. Compassion also begins with ourselves. Many people find it easier to show kindness to others than to themselves. They carry harsh inner critics, voices that condemn every mistake, demand perfection, and whisper unworthiness. But without self-compassion, our compassion for others runs dry. We cannot pour from an empty cup. To practice self-compassion is to treat ourselves as we would treat a beloved friend, with patience, with forgiveness, with tenderness. When we stumble, we speak gently to ourselves instead of harshly. When we are tired, we allow rest instead of punishment. When we are hurting, we offer care instead of criticism. This inner kindness does not make us selfish, it makes us whole. And from wholeness, compassion for others flows more freely. One of the most powerful teachings of the Buddha is the practice of loving kindness, or metta. In this practice, we begin by silently repeating phrases of goodwill toward ourselves. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be at peace. Then we extend the same wishes to loved ones. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be at peace. Then to strangers. Then even to those who have harmed us. This expansion of compassion stretches our hearts beyond the small circle of self-interest into the vast field of shared humanity. We begin to see that everyone, even those who hurt us, longs for the same things: safety, happiness, peace. Compassion does not excuse harmful actions, but it sees the suffering behind them. It responds not with hatred, but with wisdom and love. Compassion is not always easy. Sometimes it feels like opening our hearts to pain will crush us. Sometimes the suffering of the world feels too heavy to bear. But compassion does not ask us to carry all pain. It asks us to meet each moment with kindness. When someone is hurting, we offer presence. When someone is lonely, we offer connection. When someone is in need, we offer what we can. Compassion is not about solving the entire world. It is about bringing light to the small corner we inhabit. And when millions of small lights shine, the world becomes brighter. The force of compassion is gentle, but it is not weak. It takes courage to choose kindness in a world that often values hardness. It takes strength to forgive when revenge feels easier. It takes resilience to love when fear urges us to close off. Compassion is not sentimental, it is radical. It challenges the illusion of separateness, reminding us that your suffering is my suffering, and your joy is my joy. When we live with compassion, we live as though the boundary between self and other has dissolved. And in truth, it has. The same breath that fills your lungs fills mine. The same earth that holds you holds me. Compassion is simply living in alignment with this truth. Compassion is often misunderstood as weakness, but the truth is that it requires extraordinary strength. To harden your heart against suffering is easy. To turn away, to ignore, to dismiss, that is the path of least resistance. But to remain open, to allow another's pain to touch you, to respond with kindness instead of indifference, that is courage. Compassion is the strength to stay soft in a world that often demands hardness. It is the ability to keep loving even when love is not returned, to keep forgiving even when forgiveness feels undeserved, to keep caring even when caring is inconvenient. This strength is not loud, not flashy, not dramatic. It is gentle, steady, and transformative. Consider the ripple effect of a single compassionate act. A kind word to someone in despair can change the course of their day, perhaps even their life. A moment of patience with a child can shape the way they see themselves for years to come. A smile to a stranger can remind them that the world is not entirely cold. These acts may seem small, but compassion multiplies. It spreads from one heart to another, often unseen, often unacknowledged, yet deeply real. Compassion is like water soaking into dry ground. It moves quietly, but it brings life wherever it flows. Compassion also transforms conflict. Imagine two people locked in argument, each clinging to their position, each determined to win. The tension escalates, voices rise, tempers flare. Without compassion, the battle grows until it breaks the relationship. But if even one person pauses, breathes, and listens with compassion, the energy shifts. Instead of hearing only attack, they hear pain. Instead of seeing an enemy, they see a human being struggling. Compassion does not always resolve conflict instantly, but it opens a door. It allows dialogue instead of division, healing instead of harm. This is why compassion is not just personal, it is social. It has the power to mend communities, to bridge cultures, to heal nations. We often underestimate the power of compassion because we confuse it with pity. Pity looks down on others. Compassion stands beside them. Pity says, "You are weak." Compassion says, "I suffer too." Pity separates. Compassion unites. This is why compassion is so transformative. It dissolves the illusion of separation. When we live with compassion, we begin to see the world not as a battlefield of competing selves, but as a web of interconnected lives. The suffering of one is the suffering of all. The joy of one is the joy of all. This vision changes how we act, how we speak, how we live. Self-compassion is just as essential. Without it, we may burn out in our attempts to care for others. Many people believe that being hard on themselves makes them stronger. But in truth, self-criticism drains energy and paralyzes growth. Self-compassion gives us the courage to try, to fail, to learn, and to keep going. It teaches us to say, "I am human. I am allowed to stumble. I am worthy of kindness." This inner kindness does not make us complacent, it makes us resilient. When we treat ourselves gently, we recover faster from mistakes. We stand up quicker after falls, and we extend that same patience to others. Self-compassion is the foundation upon which all other compassion is built. There is a practice in Buddhism called Tonglen, or sending and taking. In this meditation, we breathe in the suffering of others, not to be crushed by it, but to acknowledge it. Then we breathe out relief, love, and healing. This practice trains the heart to expand, to hold not only our own pain, but the pain of the world. It does not mean we solve everything. It means we stop closing ourselves off. We allow compassion to flow through us like air, in, out, constant, life-giving. This practice reminds us that compassion is not limited. It grows the more we share it. The more love we give, the more love flows through us. Compassion also has the power to transform fear. Fear tells us to protect ourselves, to close our hearts, to see others as threats. But compassion softens fear. It allows us to see that most people act from their own pain, their own wounds, their own struggles. When we recognize this, we no longer see enemies everywhere. We see fellow travelers, stumbling as we stumble, longing for peace as we long for peace. Compassion does not make us naive, it makes us wise. It teaches us to defend ourselves when needed, but without hatred. It teaches us to stand firm without cruelty. Compassion balances strength with softness, justice with mercy, clarity with love. As this chapter comes to a close, remember this: compassion is not something you must wait to feel perfectly before you share it. Compassion is a practice, cultivated moment by moment. Each time you pause before judging, each time you listen instead of dismiss, each time you soften instead of harden, you are strengthening this force within you. Over time, compassion becomes your natural response. It becomes the air you breathe, the ground you walk, the light you carry. And from this light, we move to the next truth, the path of resilience, the ability to endure life's storms not only with strength, but with grace, guided by the gentle force of compassion that we now carry within. One of the greatest challenges in life is knowing where to place our attention. Our minds are endlessly busy, spinning with worries, regrets, desires, and endless questions. Why did this happen to me? What if I fail? What should I do next? On the surface, these questions seem reasonable, even important. But often they lead us into loops of confusion and anxiety, pulling our focus away from what truly matters. Ancient wisdom reminds us that not every question deserves our energy. Some questions liberate, others trap. The ability to discern between them is the heart of clarity, the essence of wisdom, and the key to living fully in the present. Consider the parable of the poisoned arrow. A man is struck by an arrow, suffering excruciating pain. Instead of removing the arrow, he demands to know who shot it, what kind of wood the arrow is made from, and whether the poison is mild or strong. Meanwhile, the pain intensifies. The point is clear. Focusing on unnecessary questions keeps us trapped in suffering. In life, many of our thoughts resemble that poisoned arrow. We ruminate endlessly on why and what if, instead of taking the clear, necessary action to heal, to change, or to respond. Wisdom lies in distinguishing the essential from the irrelevant in modern life. This challenge is amplified. We are bombarded by information, advice, opinions, and possibilities. News alerts flash on our phones. Social media fills our feeds with the stories of others. Workplaces demand constant problem solving. Even our relationships present endless complexities. It is easy to become lost in the noise, paralyzed by the mind's insistence on answering every question. But the art of focus is to prioritize what truly matters. Which questions, when asked, lead to growth, understanding, or freedom? Which questions only prolong suffering? This discernment is not learned overnight. It is cultivated through practice, reflection, and awareness that the first step is noticing where your attention goes. How often do we allow our minds to wander to the past, replaying failures, regrets, or humiliations? How often do we project into the future, imagining worst-case scenarios, catastrophes, or endless desires? These mental excursions are not inherently harmful, but they become harmful when they dominate our awareness. We begin to identify with them, believing that they define our reality. Awareness, the same skill cultivated in previous chapters, is the tool that allows us to step back, to observe the mind, to see questions arising and fading, to choose which ones deserve our energy. Once we notice the wandering of the mind, the second step is to evaluate each question's value. Does this thought help me understand what I can act upon? Does it guide me toward wisdom, compassion, or freedom? Or does it simply drain my energy, fuel my fear, or trap me in an endless speculation? Consider the difference between how can I improve my skills to contribute meaningfully, and why does this person dislike me? One invites action and growth. The other fosters resentment and stagnation. The first brings clarity. The second fuels suffering. The essence of wisdom's focus is choosing the first consistently. We also learn that not knowing is acceptable. Many people suffer because they insist on answers for every uncertainty in life. But life is inherently uncertain. No matter how much we plan, study, or prepare, some questions remain unanswered. The Buddha taught that true wisdom is recognizing the limits of knowledge and focusing on what can be known and acted upon. By letting go of the endless pursuit of answers to questions that do not serve us, we free our energy to engage fully with the present, to act wisely, and to cultivate compassion. In practice, this discernment can be applied in simple ways. Begin each day by asking, what matters most right now? Prioritize your attention accordingly. When a difficult thought arises, ask, does this serve me or does it trap me? When a complex problem presents itself, ask, which part can I act on and which part is beyond my control? These small acts of focus gradually train the mind to distinguish between essential and non-essential questions. Over time, clarity becomes natural. The mind no longer chases every distraction or obsessively replays every uncertainty. It rests in wisdom. Another important aspect of wisdom's focus is emotional clarity. Questions are often fueled by emotions: fear, anger, desire, or envy. The mind asks, why did they hurt me? What if I fail? Why am I not enough? These questions are not inherently bad. They signal that something matters to us, but without discernment, they hijack our attention. By noticing the emotions behind the questions, we gain perspective. We recognize, this is fear speaking. This is pride. This is craving. Once the emotion is identified, the question can be evaluated for its usefulness. This combination of emotional awareness and selective questioning is the foundation of wise living. Focus is not merely mental, it is ethical. The questions we dwell on shape our behavior. A mind caught in envy or anger acts differently than a mind guided by clarity and compassion. The questions we ask determine our choices, and our choices shape our lives. By cultivating wisdom's focus, we not only reduce suffering for ourselves, but also create space for positive action in the world. We act from understanding, not from reactivity. We respond with compassion, not with judgment. We move with clarity, not confusion. Finally, wisdom's focus requires discipline. The mind is naturally restless, drawn to every new stimulus, every whisper of curiosity, every fear of the unknown. It is easy to be swept away, but with regular practice through meditation, mindful reflection, and conscious prioritization, we learn to train attention. We learn to identify the essential questions and let go of the rest. The energy that was once scattered becomes concentrated. Our thoughts, emotions, and actions align with purpose. This is the difference between a life driven by habit and a life guided by wisdom. The skill of focusing on essential questions is not merely about avoiding mental clutter. It also shapes our understanding of causality, consequence, and responsibility. In life, many events happen beyond our control. We are struck by illness, betrayal, or loss. The mind immediately asks, why me? Why this? Who is to blame? These questions may be natural, but they rarely lead to clarity. They keep us tangled in resentment, anxiety, or despair. Wisdom teaches that the first question to ask is always, what can I do in this moment to respond wisely? Once action is identified, other questions lose their grip. The mind shifts from rumination to responsibility, from paralysis to engagement. Consider the life of someone who has suffered a significant setback, a lost job, A failed relationship? Or a serious illness? The instinctive reaction is often to analyze endlessly, replaying conversations, blaming others, or imagining alternative outcomes. This mental loop magnifies suffering. But when the mind applies wisdom's focus, it asks, what steps can I take to care for myself, to repair relationships, to adapt? Energy that was previously wasted on unproductive speculation is now directed toward constructive action. The difference is profound. Suffering is not necessarily removed, but the mind is no longer trapped. The inner space created by discernment allows peace, clarity, and the ability to act with courage. This principle applies to our moral choices as well. When faced with ethical dilemmas, we often ask endless what-if questions, analyzing hypothetical consequences, weighing imagined judgments, and calculating potential gains and losses. This kind of speculation can trap us in indecision or justify inaction. Wisdom's focus directs us instead to questions that matter. What choice will reduce suffering? What choice will cultivate compassion and integrity? By concentrating on these questions, the mind becomes aligned with ethical clarity. The answers guide action, and action becomes a practice of freedom and compassion. In relationships, essential questions can transform conflict. When someone behaves in a hurtful or confusing way, the mind instinctively asks, why did they do this? What does it mean about me? How can I get revenge? These questions fuel anger, resentment, and confusion. But the essential question is different. How can I respond in a way that reduces suffering and preserves connection? This shift changes the entire dynamic. Instead of escalating conflict, we act from awareness. We speak with clarity. We listen with presence. We hold space for understanding. Relationships are no longer battlegrounds. They become arenas for compassion and learning. The ability to focus on essential questions also nurtures creativity and problem solving. When faced with complex challenges at work, in art, or in life, our minds often scatter across countless possibilities. We imagine every scenario, weigh every variable, and chase every what-if. This flood of possibilities can be paralyzing. But wisdom's focus directs attention to what is actionable, meaningful, and aligned with values. The mind becomes a lens, concentrating energy on solutions rather than distractions. Insight emerges naturally, often in ways that were previously obscured by mental noise. The practice of prioritizing essential questions is deeply linked to mindfulness. Mindfulness creates the awareness necessary to notice when the mind is wandering into unnecessary speculation. It allows us to observe the rising of unproductive thoughts without becoming entangled. Once observed, we can redirect attention to questions that matter, questions that lead to action, clarity, or insight. This practice is not a single act. It is continuous. Each moment provides the opportunity to notice, discern, and refocus. Over time, discernment becomes second nature, and the mind learns to gravitate toward wisdom automatically. This process also involves letting go of attachment to certainty. Many people suffer because they believe that knowing every answer is necessary for security. Life, however, is inherently uncertain. Wisdom's focus recognizes that some questions cannot be answered, and some answers are irrelevant. To cling to them is to create unnecessary suffering. By letting go of the need to answer every question, we free our attention for what is meaningful. We allow ourselves to act with clarity, even in uncertainty. We cultivate resilience in the face of life's unpredictability. This is the liberation of essential questioning. Discernment frees the mind, strengthens the heart, and illuminates the path forward. Finally, focusing on essential questions transforms our relationship with time. Each day is finite, each moment irretrievable. If we spend our mental energy chasing irrelevant questions, we waste life itself. But when we identify the essential, we prioritize what matters most: meaningful work, nourishing relationships, personal growth, and compassionate action. Life becomes more deliberate, more present, and more aligned with purpose. We no longer drift through time at the mercy of distraction and obsession. Instead, we move intentionally, guided by wisdom and clarity. As this chapter closes, we see that the questions we ask define the quality of our lives. Not every question matters. Not every thought deserves attention. The mind that discerns essential questions is free to act wisely, love fully, and live intentionally. By practicing awareness, reflection, and prioritization, we cultivate a life that is not governed by every impulse, fear, or craving, but guided by insight, purpose, and presence. From this foundation, we are prepared for the final teaching, the cultivation of an indestructible mind, a mind so clear, resilient, and luminous that no storm, internal or external, can shake it. There is a place within every human being that cannot be broken, cannot be stolen, and cannot be diminished. This is the indestructible mind, the core of awareness that remains untouched by circumstance, unaffected by praise or blame, unshaken by success or failure. It is not built by force, nor acquired through achievement. It is discovered through quiet attention, through the cultivation of wisdom, compassion, and presence. Life will bring storms, pain, loss, betrayal, uncertainty, but this part of you endures, like a mountain beneath shifting clouds, like a clear sky behind a storm. Recognizing this indestructible mind changes everything. It transforms fear into courage, suffering into insight, and uncertainty into peace. Most people live unaware of this inner strength. They identify with thoughts, emotions, and experiences, believing these define who they are. When difficulties arise, they panic, they cling, they crumble. But the indestructible mind is always present, waiting for recognition. Awareness is the key to discovering it. Each breath, each moment of mindful observation reveals that thoughts, feelings, and circumstances come and go, but the observer remains. This observer is not fragile. It does not age. It does not decay. It is not shaken by what is fleeting. The indestructible mind is the foundation beneath all experience, the silent witness that holds us steady through the chaos of life. To cultivate the indestructible mind, we must first practice equanimity. Equanimity is not indifference. It is balance. It is the ability to face life's ups and downs with steady attention and clear perception. When misfortune strikes, equanimity does not deny the pain, but it prevents the mind from being overwhelmed. When fortune arrives, equanimity does not inflate the ego, but it allows us to enjoy it fully without clinging. Through equanimity, we discover that our true self is not the fluctuations of life, but the awareness that witnesses them. This awareness is indestructible because it is not constructed from impermanent elements. It is simply recognition itself. Equanimity arises from insight into impermanence. All things, bodies, possessions, relationships, thoughts are transient. Clinging to them is a source of suffering. When we understand that nothing outside the mind is permanent, we loosen our grip. We stop fighting the inevitable. We stop fearing loss. And in that release, we find stability. The indestructible mind is rooted not in what changes, but in the understanding of change itself. It is not carried away by events, because it knows their temporary nature. Life continues to move, but we remain anchored. Compassion, too, strengthens the indestructible mind. Compassion connects us to the world without entangling us in it. By cultivating compassion, we expand our hearts and reduce the isolation that comes from self-centered fear. A compassionate mind is resilient because it recognizes suffering not as a threat, but as a shared experience and responds with wisdom. It does not collapse under the weight of pain. It embraces the challenge, offering understanding and care. In this way, compassion is not soft or fragile. It is a backbone of mental and emotional resilience. indestructible mind also arises from the practice of letting go. Every attachment, whether to material possessions, outcomes, relationships, or self-image, binds the mind. Release these attachments through conscious practice, and the mind becomes unshakable. Letting go does not mean inaction or indifference. It means acting without clinging to results, acting with intention, presence, and clarity. A mind free from attachment can navigate storms without being destroyed. It is flexible yet grounded, responsive yet unperturbed. In this balance lies freedom. Meditation is a powerful tool for discovering the indestructible mind. Through consistent practice, we observe the arising and passing of thoughts, emotions, and sensations. We notice the habitual patterns of the mind, the attachments, resistances, and judgments that normally dictate our behavior. By observing without identification, we experience a space beyond the fluctuations, a steady awareness that is always present. This space is the indestructible mind, uncreated, unconditioned, and indomitable. The more we practice, the more natural it becomes to rest in this awareness throughout daily life, not just in formal meditation. Another way the indestructible mind manifests is through clarity of perception. When the mind is undistracted by craving, fear, and aversion, it sees reality as it is. Illusions, distortions, and delusions fade, and insight arises naturally. Decisions become wiser, emotions become stable, and suffering is mitigated because it is met with understanding rather than resistance. Clarity and resilience go hand in hand. A mind that perceives truth clearly cannot be easily shaken. The indestructible mind is clear, awake, and undivided. No matter what arises externally or internally. Finally, the indestructible mind is revealed through courage. Life will challenge us in countless ways. Loss, betrayal, illness, injustice, they will all appear. But a mind that knows its indestructible nature faces these challenges with strength and dignity. It does not avoid difficulty, but it is not broken by it. It meets life fully, not because life is safe or predictable, but because it knows its own unshakable foundation. True courage arises not from the absence of fear, but from recognition of the mind that cannot be destroyed. It is the quiet confidence that comes from understanding one's own inner strength. The cultivation of the indestructible mind is the culmination of all the teachings we have explored. Awareness, strength, equanimity, letting go, urgency, compassion, focus, and simplicity. Each step builds upon the last, guiding us to discover the mind that is steadfast amidst life's storms. It is not a mind separate from life. It is a mind fully engaged with life, yet free from the suffering that comes from identification, attachment, and fear. It is the ultimate sanctuary, the true home of the heart, the eternal presence that sustains us in all circumstances. Once we recognize the indestructible mind within, life transforms in subtle but profound ways. Challenges no longer dominate our experience. Instead, they become opportunities to exercise resilience, compassion, and clarity. A lost job no longer defines our worth. A failed relationship no longer dictates our happiness. Illness, aging, and death are no longer terrifying because the mind that perceives them is untouched. This is not detachment in the sense of disconnection, it is liberation. The indestructible mind engages fully with life, responds with wisdom, and experiences joy and sorrow without losing its center. Freedom, clarity, and serenity emerge naturally from this awareness. The indestructible mind also strengthens our connection to others. When we act from a place of inner steadiness, our relationships are transformed. Compassion flows effortlessly because it is rooted in stability, not in need or fear. Patience becomes natural because the mind is not easily disturbed by setbacks. Forgiveness is easier because we recognize that the suffering of others is part of the human condition, just as our own suffering is. The indestructible mind does not isolate us. It allows us to love more fully, to act more wisely, and to support others without being overwhelmed. In this way, personal resilience becomes social strength. Daily life provides countless opportunities to cultivate this mind. In traffic, we can notice irritation rising and breathe through it. In conversation, we can recognize judgment and choose understanding. In moments of grief or disappointment, we can allow emotion to arise and pass without being carried away. Each of these moments, repeated consistently, strengthens the indestructible mind. Over time, the habit of awareness, compassion, and clarity becomes second nature. Life may continue to challenge us, but the foundation remains unshaken. There is also a profound peace in accepting impermanence through the lens of the indestructible mind. Every relationship, every moment, every joy and sorrow is transient. The mind that clings suffers. The mind that recognizes this impermanence remains free. By embracing change rather than resisting it, we align ourselves with the natural flow of life. The indestructible mind understands that security does not come from external conditions, but from the inner space of awareness that observes, accepts, and moves with life. This realization is deeply liberating. Fear loses its grip. Anxiety softens. The mind rests in clarity. Meditation and mindful practice are essential tools in this cultivation. By sitting with our breath, observing thoughts, and letting sensations arise and pass, we gain direct experience of the mind's unshakable nature. With consistent practice, the recognition that I am not my thoughts, I am the awareness that observes, becomes embodied. This awareness is our sanctuary, our refuge, and our strength. Life continues to present challenges, yet we face them with a new courage, a courage rooted not in avoidance, but in the unshakable awareness of the mind's true nature. The indestructible mind also empowers ethical living. When we are anchored in clarity and awareness, our actions naturally align with wisdom and compassion. Deception, malice, and selfishness lose their appeal. Generosity, honesty, and kindness emerge effortlessly. We no longer need to force virtue because it flows from the stability and insight of the mind. This is why cultivating the indestructible mind is not only a personal practice, it is the foundation for a life that benefits others. Inner resilience becomes a beacon for the world, inspiring those around us to cultivate clarity, compassion, and courage. Even in the face of death, the indestructible mind remains serene. Physical existence may end, yet awareness persists. Each breath, each moment, each act of mindfulness strengthens this recognition. Death ceases to be a threat and becomes a natural transition. The fear that once dominated the mind softens. Gratitude, compassion, and presence replace anxiety. We see the fleeting nature of life and are inspired to live fully, to love deeply, and to act wisely. The indestructible mind transforms not only how we experience life, but how we approach its inevitable end. To summarize, the indestructible mind is the culmination of all the principles we have explored throughout this journey. Awareness of our inner strength allows us to navigate stress and anxiety. The unseen shield of mindfulness protects us from the turbulence of life. Facing the inner opponent teaches us courage and clarity. Freedom from external chains liberates us from dependence on praise, gain, and status. Choosing less allows our minds to rest in simplicity. Letting go releases attachment and opens space for joy. Awareness of life's urgency motivates us to act fully and with purpose. Compassion extends our freedom to others. Wisdom's focus guides our energy toward what truly matters. Finally, the indestructible mind anchors all these qualities, providing a foundation of unshakable stability. As we conclude this exploration, remember that every chapter, every lesson, every practice is a doorway to this indestructible mind. None of these teachings exist only in theory. They are alive in practice, accessible in each breath, each thought, each moment. Life will continue to challenge, surprise, and move us in unexpected ways. But the mind that recognizes its own indestructible nature is free. Free to act wisely, free to love deeply, free to live fully, free to encounter the world with clarity, compassion, and courage. Let this journey not end with words on a page, but continue in your daily life. Each time you notice suffering, practice awareness. Each time you encounter fear, practice courage. Each time you feel attachment, practice letting go. Each time life reminds you of its fragility, practice gratitude and presence. And each time you pause, remember that the indestructible mind, the eternal observer, the steady heart, the boundless awareness resides within you. It has always been here. It is always ready. It is your true home, your sanctuary, your freedom. Embrace it, nurture it, and carry it forward into every moment. For the journey is not about arriving. It is about living fully, awake and unshakably in the presence of life itself.